I am Emily Miller. I'm with California Sea Grant, and my specialty is sustainable seafood supply chains and the social dynamics that influence those. And we have three panelists here today to address some of the social challenges that have historically faced our local fishermen and share what they're doing right now to change things. I'll introduce them in a moment, but first I want to point out that this year's topic for the annual gathering, Kinship, which you've heard about a lot today, is very relevant to the history of fishing in San Diego. Kinship's technical definition describes family relationships, right? Although we've heard some other definitions repeated throughout the gathering in terms of our general connection to humankind, which is what we're trying to cultivate today. Kin, though, is used traditionally to refer to people to whom we are connected to by blood. And just like family farming, which some of you may know more about than fishing, family fishing is important to the industry because it keeps capital resources like boats and permits and gear together and leads to intergenerational knowledge sharing. And also, families are a pool of people that have shared values, and values are really important to seafood harvest. But fishing families have dwindled over the years owing to challenging conditions. Some of them are very similar to the challenges of those small farmers I brought up, trying to compete in a commodified food system. We have a lot of global trade that brings in foreign products to our marketplace, and that makes it hard for our local producers to survive. So this leads to initiatives to revitalize the industry and support the economic success of its participants. I'll just rattle off a few that are happening now, but these guys are going to tell you more about what they're doing. There's California Sea Grant's Commercial Fishing Apprenticeship Program, which is developed to recruit promising individuals to the fleet. Actually, we have an apprentice graduate here today, Janelle Louise in the front row, if you guys want to give her a round of applause. And her captain, Doug Dirksey, took her on he was a mentor to her. So they work on the boat, the FV Olinka. And if you went out to our seafood table, you may have gotten a sticker of theirs or some promotional material. They're a small-scale fisherman here in San Diego. There's also Fish to Families, which Dave Hayworth is very involved in. This is a meal delivery program providing nutritious and delicious local seafood to families suffering from food insecurity here in San Diego. Then there are various outreach and direct marketing efforts from Fishel Future, the San Diego Fishermen's Working Group, or Local Fish Initiative, right? Seeking to build local demand and enthusiasm and pride around our wonderful local seafoods and the folks that bring them in. Overall, these localized efforts seek to expand influence and community support for San Diego commercial fishing today. So the question for our seafood sector is, can we build kinship outside of the traditional family groups and network within the fleet and within the wider San Diego community to create a strong sense of regional pride in our local products? So let's welcome our three panelists today. We have from, that's left to right. We've got Travis Thielens, who represents the North County Fishermen's Market. We have David Hayworth of Hayworth Fish. And then we have Tanner Saraspy of Local Fish Initiative and Saraspy Seafoods. Panelists, you'll be splitting that microphone between the three of you. Make sure you turn it on before you speak. And after speaking, pass it to the next person if they're indicating that they want to speak. No pressure if there's a question that you're getting nervous. No pressure if there's a question that you don't feel like you can answer or want to answer, right? We won't force you. Please do indicate, though, if you have a thought to share so that mic can be passed to you. Ready? Okay. Let's start with our first question. Given that the theme of the gathering is kinship, what relationships led each of you to working in the fishing industry here in San Diego?
So my father was a fisherman, so basically when I was born, I knew I wanted to be a fisherman. So I would say that's, I started fishing with my dad when I was 9, going on tuna trips, and, I've been fishing ever since, so.
And for me, I come from a third-generation fishing family, also friends and family with the Hayworths as well. I guess it'd be your dad and my grandfather know each other pretty well. And yeah, my grandfather's still fishing lobster at the age of 87. Pretty wild, so it's definitely deep-rooted for me. Definitely family-based as well.
And Dave, you have a son too, right? So there's 3 generations of fishermen in your family.
And
as
then I have a
well.
granddaughter that works down at the market too. So you could stretch it even further. You could stretch it even
Right.
further. So yeah.
Amazing.
So
Travis?
I actually didn't have any previous family in the fishing industry. But my neighbor, which was my captain's right-hand man, lived right next to us. So when we were little kids, I'd bug him a lot with like fireworks and stuff, and waking him up in the middle of the night. And he was like, "Okay, well, this kid can handle the fishing industry. Let me see if he wants a job." So that's how I got into it, and never put it down, because it's a very, valuable experience as a young kid to, be exposed to the power of nature, and learn to respect like how it can produce so well for our livelihoods.
Care to share the gear types that you participate in, or like the extensive history perhaps, and different types of gear types you participate in, and also where you are based?
is it still on? Okay. So yeah, I was based in San Diego, and I've done bait fishing, bait poling fishing, purse seining, gill netting, long lining, trap fishing, pretty much all the, most every fishery. I haven't been a diver, so I never commercially dived, but pretty much every other way, rod and reel, hook and, just every way to catch fish that we're allowed to, I've pretty much done in California. Only the one fishery that I haven't done is drag fishing.
And add what species you catch.
Anything from mackerel to bluefin, swordfish, lobster. I started lobster fishing when I was in high school, so I had a skiff, and after school I'd take my skiff out and go pull lobster traps, and then I started tuna fishing for albacore, so I went out to Midway Islands. I went to the South Pacific chasing them out towards Japan. Then I came back, and then I did a lot of purse seining up and down the coast for squid, bluefin, all the different tuna species, mackerel, anchovy, sardines, and just a bunch of different things. Even rock crab. I used to do that when I was in high school too.
If anybody visited the Meet Your Meal table, we had some live rock crab there.
I heard somebody got pinched by one. No, I think it was Connie. Our family, I'd consider myself a hook and line fisherman. My fiance and I had just purchased a boat, and it's in San Diego Bay, and we're running it commercial now. But for my family, my dad fishes spot prawn, which is a very exclusive fishery. There's only 15 permits in the state of California, so it's very sustainable, limited entry, and he's been doing that for 40 years now. He also fishes rock crab, and my brother just got out of college and started crew membering for him, so that's neat. Full circle, full family operation, family business. Can be a headache sometimes. But we also fish bluefin tuna, yellowfin, yellowtail, dorado when the water's a little bit warmer around here. I said rock crab. Oh, and lobster season just opened up October 4th, so that's our primary fishery and focus right now. But yeah.
We catch bait for the Oceanside Harbor, so we just use a lumpard net, and it's different from a purse seiner, as we don't have to have a skiff that keeps us out of it, and it doesn't purse up. It doesn't close up like a purse at the bottom. It actually slides up before the bag keeps all the bait in it for us to rail it out. It's a lot different that we have to stack it by hand, and the other purse seiners, they just get to wind it up with hydraulics. So it's still kind of cool because it's very hands-on,
Can I ask the audience, can you raise your hand if some of those species or gear types were just Greek to you? Did anybody hear things that they didn't recognize? The hope for the projects here in San Diego that are converging this year and next, and led by a lot of fishermen, is to bridge that knowledge gap and get some of those species more familiar to you all, perhaps like even in your fridges. Let's hope, okay? Second question, why don't you share your current projects? What's on the horizon for you this year and next?
Well, just on the topic of species, we just launched a platform called Local Fish. The website's getlocalfish.com if any of you guys want to check it out. And we actually have a major species catalog with all of the native species in San Diego. So if you guys want to go to the site, if you're curious about some of these species you guys are talking about, in our case, spot prawn, some of you might not be familiar with, ama ebi or sweet shrimp, large jumbo shrimp that you'll see in the sushi bar. You can read all about it. And then you can also identify which fishermen in San Diego. If you scroll down to the bottom, it lists the fishermen in San Diego that actually target those species. So I think that's neat. And then you can click through to the fishermen and learn more about them and other fisheries that they fish. So just another opportunity for conscious consumerism and to allow people to learn a little bit more about what they're eating and what's native to San Diego.
Okay, what was the question again?
Were you asking? Oh, to introduce more about the.
Well, projects on the horizon, right? So you've been very involved, right, Dave, with Fish to Families as well as San Diego Fishermen's Working Group. So anything that you've been participating in and the general public may not know about, now's a good time to share.
So, we're still going to continue with Tuna Harbor Dockside Market. So we've been there for, 7-8 years. And then we're working with feeding families. And so that's been something that I've really enjoyed working with. We started that, I'd say 4 years ago or something. I forget. We had funding and non-funding, and so that's working again. So, hopefully we can continue with the feeding families, and then we do a little bit of home delivery and stuff. But kind of on my horizon, I see retirement coming up pretty soon. So I want to be honest, tired of all the, I get pulled so many directions.
Can you describe the Feeding Families effort to people who maybe don't know about the history of it over the last 4 years?
Well, we had a grant to do it, and we were just trying to feed like homeless or even the elderly, or, I was hoping the handicapped people that, could get meals delivered to their houses. My vision of it was to help everybody that can't really access seafood properly or doesn't want to cook it in their kitchens, and it's super hard, and handicapped people really have a hard time doing it. And so, my vision is to have it go out all the way around, not just for homeless, but also for the retirement homes, instead of them just getting a, fish stick or something, so we were delivering to some of those, and also to the homeless, and even to some churches that might need it. So, I'm hoping it expands. And one of the things that I've done is, because I have a few boats, and so I can bring in fish real cheap sometimes so that we can have high-end fish. And, so today we actually supplied swordfish for the program, so they're going to have swordfish tomorrow. But, I'd like to see that where we go from a rockfish or a mackerel, albacore tuna, bluefin tuna, yellowfin tuna, swordfish, and I even wanted to do lobster. So, that's kind of one of my goals, is to have it go out there. And I did get feedback when I proposed the lobster. People were saying, oh, that's not what the program's about. It's about feeding people. And I said, well, yeah, feeding them lobster. I mean, what's the difference, if you give them they said it would make the program look bad if you're giving poorer people or handicapped people lobster. And I said, to me, that just made no sense. So, hopefully we'll fix that. And you'll see lobster one day.
Yeah, an equity of access issue. Travis, care to share what you're working on? We can circle back around to other thoughts, too, if you have more.
Cool. Well, we're doing something similar to Tuna Harbor Dockside Market, but in Oceanside, and we're going to brand it as a Fisherman's Market of North County. We're building our websites, and we just got permits and stuff to be able to hold this market. And if you guys want to stop by the Sea Grant counter out there and grab a flyer, be my guest. But, I really feel like it's a valuable thing to have people like David here and Sir Aspie, educating people on just how valuable the ocean is and not just to feed ourselves, but to sustain a healthy flow of produce. And I think the ocean really needs to be taken care of. And when we can provide the food directly to the people and they can benefit from the waters that they live next to, is a very organic and it brings it back to home, grassroots kind of movement. So I applaud you guys for everything you're doing, and anything I can help with, feel free to ask. Thank you guys so much. Also, this event is really amazing too. I think it's painting a great perspective and bringing back an intrinsic value in how food is prepared and the culture that revolves around it. So thank you guys for putting on this event.
No, thank you for being here. It's super hard to get fishermen in this room, guys. So can we give them another round of applause for the effort? Sorry, I kidnapped your notebook. Does somebody up here on the stage want to actually describe Tuna Harbor Dockside Market to me? Because we're in Escondido right now. Tuna Harbor Dockside Market is downtown. Can we get a show of hands as to who's been there? Oh my gosh, that's actually more than I expected. Yeah. But I think that there were also some hands that weren't raised. So for those people who haven't been, who would like to describe what's going on there?
I think Tuna Harbor Dockside Market's unique in that you're gonna get seafood direct from the commercial fishermen that caught the product. So you go to a farmer's market, you're not necessarily getting that, but when you go to Tuna Harbor Dockside Market, you're getting it from the Hayworth family, from the Sarasby family. I think with the Oceanside Market, that's the same intent, to have it direct from local fishermen. So I think that's really important. It's on Saturdays, for any of you that don't know, and they open at 8 a.m., and they have processed fish options as well as whole fish. And you can ask them a million questions. Do it. I mean, there's no better way to connect with the source and your food than to ask the fishermen that actually caught the catch. So I think it's really special, and I hope that the opportunity continues to expand and there's more fishermen's markets in San Diego, because we're lacking that. It's hard. There's a lot of misinformation around fish right now. You go to the supermarket, you see red snapper. That's not caught here. We have red rockfish, which is what you guys ate today. And there's actually a couple fishermen in the room today, which I just want to applaud you guys for coming out. And it's so great to see the fishermen's faces. And what's crazy is I've been at this event, I think I actually didn't make it last year, but the year prior, and there was one seafood booth. And now we have an entire fisherman's or seafood alley, which is, you're really seeing this movement be uplifted. And I think we're right behind the local food movement, so we're right behind ag, but we're getting there. So it's really great to see all the support from all of you, and definitely head down to Tuna Harbor Dockside Market if you get the opportunity.
Yeah, what's the recommendation? Get there early?
Yeah,
so
there's lines. There's definitely lines. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's good to get there early for, if you're looking for something that's a little rarer. But if you come a little later, then the fishermen will have time to talk. Between 8 and 9, we're so busy, and sometimes we feel guilty because we can't really talk. But if you come after 9 o'clock, you can talk about the fish a lot more, because, at first it's just, kind of crazy.
Wait, yeah, you'll get cut too if it's your first time.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's still noon, right?
Yeah, 1 o'clock. We shut down at 1. Most of the fishermen shut down by 10:30, 11. Most of them are sold out by then.
And Travis, I don't remember if you said this, are you angling for springtime being the start date for your market in Oceanside Harbor?
Yeah, also because I don't want to be in a race against the clock, and I want to do everything properly. And there's a lot of, there's been a lot of hurdles that we've had to jump through to get to this point, which is, and it's still not even, it's not even up, but we're gonna get there. But yeah, April we're shooting for spring, then the water can warm up again, and we can really, benefit from our local resources.
Tanner, do you want to say some more about Local Fish Initiative?
Yeah.
Has anybody checked out that booth?
We just launched our platform yesterday. Again, it's getlocalfish.com. And part of that is we also have a fish finder on the website where you can locate places in San Diego where you can buy direct from fishermen, or marketplaces that have local seafood options. Also, there's restaurants listed on there that source from us, which I think is also really cool. The platform itself is really all about connecting local fishermen in San Diego with chefs and the community. So, there's educational resources. Our goal is to really work on advocacy. How can we help with marketing? Fishermen have the opportunity to build customizable profiles for themselves. You'll see that Janelle and Doug are on there, and Ryan in the corner for SIBO Seafoods. And any other, if you guys know of any fishermen, commercial fishermen interested in getting involved, we're very interested in adding more people to the platform and getting more information out there about what they're catching, their gear types, where you can find them. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. So if you guys get a chance to take a look, please do.
And aren't you also creating like a plan for educating chefs and restaurants?
Yeah, one of the, hurdles that I came across. So I started my distribution company pretty fresh out of college, and navigating the complexities of the seafood world is ridiculous. We're actually not legally permitted to sell cut fish to restaurants, which makes it really, really challenging. We're stuck with selling large tuna, small tuna, whole rockfish to chefs, and some of these chefs don't even really know how to break down. So there's a huge educational gap that a lot of these restaurants are lacking. So it's like, how do we disseminate that information and get it out there, provide the right resources? And in addition, we have one of the components of the website, we're calling it, instead of the portal, the Fisherman's Porthole. And there's a big list of resources, and we're working on developing compliance resources as well. And so a lot of the information you'll see on the internet, if you're interested in becoming a fisherman, a lot of it it's kind of California based or federal based, and so it's really hard to look at, what permits do I need? How do I navigate selling bluefin tuna to restaurants versus selling to consumers? So we're trying to break that all down specific to San Diego, because San Diego actually, if any of you guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but was the tuna capital of the world at one point. So we have such a huge culture here that I think it needs a little bit of revitalization. And I think all of you here, I hope you all eat local seafood. It's so important. But yeah, check out Local Fish if you get a chance.
Thanks, everyone. So obviously you guys have been talking about things you're doing in the seafood space to connect it more strongly with the outside community. And you mentioned one of the challenges being like that education gap with restaurants. Are there any success stories to share? No. But each of you has been a pioneer in some field, right, of breakthrough moments, some of them being policy, maybe some of them being marketplaces. If you'd care to share anything.
It's super hard there's so many rules and regulations throughout the state and federal regulations. So no matter what you do when you're a small business, you're violating some law somewhere if they want to enforce it. Like in Ventura, they're not allowed, they used to have they had their original tuna harbor dockside market kind of up there, and then they kind of got shut down by the health department. Well, the health department here let us do it, but up there they wouldn't let them do it. So then they came down here and started screaming and bloody murder, and so then we're like, don't scream because then we'll get shut down. And so we had meetings with Ventura, up in Santa Barbara, Ventura, their health department in San Diego. So each place interprets it different. In Oceanside, to set up a market, they might say, hey, you're not allowed to cut fish, you can't do this, you can't deliver it, you can't put it in a truck. It's really hard for us. And so you can get one new person, an inspector, a warden, whoever, can just come down and shut us down, just really, or a federal person. So that part's always, kind of scary, and it's interpreted, through whatever community you're in. So some because you say, why aren't these markets up and down the coast? Some places won't allow them. And we're all under the same rules, supposedly. So that part's kind of scary. I shouldn't even be saying it, but it's the truth. So that part's, was really scary. I think one of the best, my favorite parts of direct marketing was when the COVID came out and everything was shutting down, and then the government was coming up, hey, you're not allowed to leave your house, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed, and I said, so I started having meetings with them. Well, how are people going to eat? If we all shut down, they told all the boats to not go fishing, they told us to take all of our fish, and not distribute it. And I'm going, well, what's going to happen? That's going to mean a food shortage. I mean, it's common sense. And so we were lucky enough in San Diego where we pivoted right away, and then we started selling direct to the public, and we sold all of our boatloads of fish. We were able to sell as much as we wanted. We lowered the price real low, so it was fair. Instead of gouging, I tell people, like we were charging $10 a pound for tuna, and other people were charging $30 a roll for toilet paper at the time. And so we both had lines. People were trying to buy $30 toilet paper, and we're trying to sell $10 tuna. But that was a part that I thought that I was really happy we were able to successfully do in a time of a pandemic. It's just kind of, we just, were able to survive it. And so, we're still trying to do it, but,
Right. With that lockdown, it seems like things really slowed down. Who here started baking sourdough bread? Did anybody start doing that? That was one of the things that became really trendy. And now seems like things are ramping up again. Almost COVID and the pandemic and the lockdowns almost seem like a distant memory. But obviously things grew out of that, right? Like we're all sitting here today and there's more of us in the room and there's more people here interested.
And I'll say something, David, if you don't mind. I think, on the theme of kinship, I think that unfortunately pandemics like COVID brought us all a little bit closer together. We're in a unique situation as commercial fishermen because we're all competing for a limited resource. We are competing with one another, and it's very hard to unionize, get together, and try to market your catch. It really does take a team, if not an entire community, to make it happen. And I think, unfortunately, but fortunately, in hard times, we figured it out. We were lending resources to one another, helping one another, looking at what one another was doing. I mean, our business alone, we pivoted from 100% local chef sales to farmers markets, and then I wouldn't call this a success story, but one of the things we started doing during COVID was we were showing up to vacant school parking lots, and we set up an online system for pre-ordering, and we were having a drive-through system where people would come up, put their number in the window because they wouldn't look at you. They keep their masks on, look at you, put their number in the window, and they'd pop their trunk, and we'd put their order in the back seat. Yes, my mom got chased out by the principal one time, and then we had to kibosh that. But, we got into farmers markets. We got to dabble in that for a minute, and I think it's opening the door and the realization that consumers want local seafood. They don't have access to it. So, like, opportunities like this oceanside market, I mean, I think it's great. I'm definitely seeing a generational shift, I think, also, where we're trying to come together a little bit more, I would hope. And, the fishing industry is tough because you don't really go to school for it, and that's why I see it's very generational. It's like my brother's doing it, I'm doing it, but a lot of people that are interested in getting into the industry don't know how. So I think resources like that, the apprenticeship program, right? I believe Fishful Future is a part of it, and Sea Grant. That's been incredible, and I believe they just secured additional funding to keep that going. Janelle, you were a part of that program as well, right? Yeah. And look, now she's working with Doug. Like, how cool is that? So we're seeing this shift and this change, and I think it is going to take the next generation to kind of step up and come together a little bit more and realize we're also not just competing for a limited resource on the water, but as soon as we hit land, we're competing for markets, So it is tough, but again, the dockside market's a great example of everybody's getting together and helping each other and trying to sell. I mean, we're all working towards the same effort of selling local seafood and getting more seafood, increasing the accessibility and getting it into people's hands. So yeah, I'd say success stories all around since COVID, unfortunately.
Like she said, I think fishing is essentially hunting, and there's very little professions that you can do that really recreates that primal instinct to go hunt and be out in the unknown, where you're exposed to dangers and you are facing, the dragons of what could be out there, So I think it's very, very, I think it satisfies like a primal side of people, people's, and I think that's very, very important to understand that, when you come back, you got to guard what you come home with, and you essentially you're putting your life on the line to go and gather that, when you come back to port, you're like, oh, I'm not gonna tell you how I did it successfully, you know. So when you do kind of tame the wild fishermen, you bring them back down to size, and I think that's cool when COVID did happen, because it forced them to start working together when usually there was no working together. But you know, that's why this, like I'll say again, this event is just very valuable, is because, you know, it brings everyone and sharing information together in a lot of different disciplines, and I think fishing industry can benefit from, you know, exercises like this.
So can any of you tell me more about the archetype, the stereotype of the commercial fisherman as like this solitary and self-reliant person who, and how that might impact the social development towards cooperation versus competition?
Yeah, well, I don't really know how to answer that question, but kind of like when we go fishing, like when I leave to go fishing, I put, you know, spend all the money to get the boat ready, and I don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So, I mean, people laugh at this, but I'm scared when I leave on a fishing trip. You know, you think after doing all this years, I'm scared when I leave. Am I going to catch anything? Am I going to make it back? What's going to happen, you know, when I go on some of these longer trips? And so then you're out there, and then I start catching a bunch of fish. Then all of a sudden I have to think, how am I going to sell the fish? What am I going to do with it? I caught too much, so now the market's not going to want to pay me for the fish. You know, so then you go into that mode. And then then you get in, and then everyone wants to know where you caught your fish. And so then you're in that mode, and then you're trying to sell your fish. And so then you sell your fish, and then you're trying to collect the money for your fish. You know, so it's just a never-ending, you know, battle, I guess you could say. And, you know, it's part of me. It's, you know, I love it, let's say, but you don't realize it. But then when you really think about it, you know, I'm still, after I give you my fish, I'm still trying to collect from you. And a lot of restaurants, as you'll know, don't pay, and so you're waiting and waiting, and then you have your crew, so you're taking care of all of their families. So, you know, when you bring someone on your boat, then you're taking care of their whole family too. So, you know, it's a lot of responsibility that, you know, I don't know how to say it or whatever, but that's just how I feel. It's all, and it's not just going and catching the fish and coming in. There's just so much more to it. You know, then you're having to go to the fuel dock, you're having to maintain, you had a breakdown, you had something happen, and injury, whatever it is. So it's a constant, you know, battle, or constant, you know, 24-hour work. Right. So for someone that thinks they're going to fish, they're going to go out for 8 hours a day and come home, you know, it doesn't really work that way.
You're always
you know?
in crisis mode.
Always, you know, putting out fires.
And what you were saying about being afraid when you go out, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but other people see fishermen as like super self-reliant and independent, like you were saying, going out into the unknown. And we gotta give you credit for that. It's like there's so much involved with being a local producer, so much to juggle. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and the one other thing is, when I go fishing and I think it's going to be an easy trip, like I'll catch a bunch and I'll go, oh, this trip's going to be easy. It never is. It just doesn't work that way. So something always happens.
Yeah. Archetype, I mean, I'd say salty. I'd say there's a specific way to talk to them. Being that
Tell them how to talk to them.
I don't have an answer, but I mean, it's like, I mean, for me, it's speaking to my grandfather, speaking to my dad, and now my brother, uncles. I mean, it's crazy. Like Nicole, who's here, her dad's also a fisherman. It's just, there's a special way to talk to them, and they're salty old men, a lot of them. And some of them are grumpy, and they've been at sea for, you know, days on end, hours on end, it depends. And you know, I praise my mother for dealing with it, and maybe the kids too, and my siblings for, you know, you don't have your dad around a lot when you're a kid, and but you have so much respect for him and what he does. And I think that's an archetype of fishermen, is there's that respect, and I think they take pride in it. And you know, it takes a special human to go out there and be the one that's looking the fish in the eyes and providing the food that's going to go to your plate. And Yeah, I mean, with Kinship, I think fishermen, they're trustworthy. And yeah, it takes a special human to be a fisherman. Salty old guy, just kidding.
Yeah, well, yes, I think that, it's hard to stereotype. I think that every fisherman's different in their own ways, and you have some that are salty, you have some that are not, and, so I think it's like anything else. There's a lot of different personalities in the fishing industry. Yeah, I'm just saying, so like, there's some guys that, that you can just go up and talk to and ask questions, and they're just a wealth of information. There's guys that won't even tell you hello, and I've just seen it since I grew up. So, it's all different people. So I can't really say, that it's one type, in my opinion.
Talk about the work you're doing to network with the local fishermen, because that, to this point, you're trying to connect with some of these guys that maybe
Oh
are
yeah.
used to collaborating.
Yeah, like like Dave said, some of them won't even say hello. But
How was I when you called?
well, thank God I know how to talk to the salty old men. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, but yeah, where was I? No, it's yeah, going around the docks and trying to get everybody on the same page and be like, hey, you guys, you got to organize, and we got to do this on this date, and you got to reserve this amount of poundage or whatever for what we're trying to do. If they don't respect you, or you haven't grown up working alongside them your whole life, like, and you're just some like business guy that wants to come and start pointing the finger and organizing them when they're they're kind of a rebellious nature, it's just not going to work. So you kind of have to have long-lasting or deep-rooted relationships with the fishermen, because it goes back to entering that unknown where it is dangerous. You need to be able to trust the man next to you with your life, so that's a huge part of it, is how do you connect the outside world to fishing. Well, I think it's kind of like a filter of who can actually hack it. Is the only people that are going to get in the industry are the ones that go down there and ask for a job 10 times and then come back another 10 times and keep asking, because they're going to look the other way. It's not like they're taking job applications or something of that nature. It's like a by reference only, hey, I know this guy, he seems like a good dude. That's the only way you're going to get in, because there's so much importance on being able to trust the man next to you with your life. You know what I mean? I think that's an important aspect to this relationship between in the seafood industry.
I want to riff off that question or that statement too. And for the audience, could any of you explain, like, what are some of the things that have eroded trust, the ability to build trust for fishermen? A lot of the things that have happened to them historically, maybe the audience doesn't know about. Does anybody want to talk about that?
You're talking about politically, or
Sure, or like the PR, right?
Yeah. We've had a lot of bad PR, over the years, and they take pictures of stuff that's caught in a foreign country and put it up on a screen like this in front of a bunch of people and say that we're catching these, and we're not, and it's even a foreign country's boat. They don't even bother to, take the name off the boat, and so then everyone's like, oh, they caught a turtle or whatever it was, and so we've had a lot of, I spent a lot of time at meetings trying to defend my livelihood with lies. Science is science, and if we're hurting the environment, I've always said, if there's science that proves it and we're hurting the environment, then we should be shut down or restricted. And we have a lot of restrictions. But when they don't use science and they use fake propaganda or whatever, and fake statistics against us, it hurts, and we're just, not that not that many fishermen to defend ourselves. So we've lost some battles, and we've had to spend a lot of time off the water trying to fight this and to stay in business instead of fishing. So, and I think pretty much all fishermen support proper science, and, because we want the oceans to do well, and we want proper populate. If there's no fish, how are we going to make a living? So we want the fish to flourish out here. And I call California Club Med for the fish, because there's so many fish out. There's a lot of fish out here, especially for the bluefin, because our country, we're allowed 1,000 tons of bluefin, and Mexico's allowed 8,000 or 9,000 tons in the same time period. Japan's allowed like 20,000 tons, and this is America. And so we're buying all of our bluefin from Mexico, like way more than we get here, and from Japan. So that's a real sore subject with me when the quota, they're taking the same quota that we have, and U.S. gets this much of it. So that part's, very discouraging.
Yeah, on that note, we're actually underfishing for Pacific bluefin tuna, and they're shifting the quota because we're not hitting our quota to other countries and giving it away. So when you're eating U.S. domestic caught seafood, you're eating the right seafood. We're highly regulated. I wanted to go back to your question. Talking about fishermen, and I think the other thing that we need to keep in mind is that these guys, I think part of the reason the industry hasn't really expanded as much as I would hope it would, is that these guys are out at sea. They my dad, for example, sorry, I keep talking about my father, but very blue collar. He can't send an email. His first email account I had to set up for him because it was because the landing logbooks that we have to report on switched from paper books to an online system. And honestly, I'd say if I wasn't around to help him with that transition, I don't know if he would have been able to continue. And that's what's scary, is there's not a lot of hand-holding for the fishermen to make those transitions. And that's why, they say it's such a graying fleet here in San Diego or in California, in the US in general. A lot of it has to do with that. I think we're lacking the resources necessary to get the next generation fishermen into the industry and keep them going. So, I think a lot of the efforts here are, how do we help promote, how do we help educate, how do we help get them in, and yeah, so I think that but the reality is I don't know how much that's going to change. Fishermen are out at sea. They can't be in front of their computer screen, so how do we, if my dad didn't have kids, I don't know if he could have been able to market his catch. And, for years before I actually started the distribution business, he was exclusively selling to wholesalers, and we would never see the product on local plates, ever. No one knew what a San Diego spot prawn was, for example. So they thought maybe they came out of Santa Barbara or, it was a foreign product. But so it took a lot of work on my end, and we've increased the price per pound exponentially. His ex-vessel value has gone up, but it takes work on the ground. And when you don't have the resources to do that, it's really tough to make a living and keep it viable. And I think also with COVID and everything else, it's resiliency is something that we need to grab onto and figure out how we can come together to keep it going, because it is a graying fleet. But I do think there's a lot of opportunity there too. So yeah, okay, a little too passionate, sorry guys.
Panelists, this is softball. What is your hope for your ultimate desire to see in the next year and into the future? What's your vision for San Diego as a source of local seafood? What would you like to see happen here?
Well, yeah, but I'd also like to see the seaport development come to life, which is supposed to. There's a big development going in downtown, and we've been in negotiations. I'm on the board, and so is David of the Fishermen's Working Group. And we've been in negotiations, myself 5 years, David probably, 12, 10 years, with a developer that's, yeah, they keep pushing, that's how this stuff works. But it's, a major waterfront development, and a lot of it the goal was to push the fishermen out and make it a yacht harbor. And luckily, thanks to the Fishermen's Working Group, we've been working really hard to negotiate against that and talk about the cultural significance of fishing in San Diego and why we need to keep it alive. And I think it's great, you know, David with his son Nick, who I don't think is here today, but I think he wishes he could be here, providing some new faces. It's so great to see Janelle and Ryan and getting the younger generation more involved. I'd like to see that. If I could see things go forward, it would be getting the next generation of fishermen involved, and you know, they need to be on the forefront of the policy making side as well, which I know isn't the fun part, and I don't necessarily love it either, and that's why they're fishermen, is so they don't have to do this stuff, but it kind of just goes hand in hand. So yeah.
So, you know, I agree with what Tanner was saying, but it's really hard for the younger fishermen now. You know, just think the average cost of a house in San Diego's, you know, around $1 million. And so how are they going to afford to have housing in San Diego? And to buy permits to go fishing, there's not that much that's open access anymore, so they have to buy limited entry permits, which are thousands of dollars. Let's just say a lobster permit's like $150,000. You know, a squid permit might be $1 million. A spot pond permit might be $700,000, $800,000. And so it really, and then a boat, the cost of a boat, the fuel. Right now, these fuel prices, people don't realize, but they're killing the fishermen. Well, I mean, fishing's $5 to $7.
What does it cost you on a trip? I mean, ballpark numbers, but I think it's so important.
Well, it's over $30,000 to go out on a
one trip.
Yeah, for one of the. That's why I said when I leave the dock, I'm scared, you know, because
Yeah,
but the fuel, yeah, the fuel bills are really high right now. You know, we're paying $5 and up all the way up towards Oregon. The price is anywhere from $5 to $7. I've heard over the last month for these fishermen. So, you know, hopefully the fuel costs go down. And one thing that I'm hoping for, too, is support with the public with when they are talking about developing Seaport Village. They want to take our area, our commercial area, and build a big underground parking on it down at G Street and make it into parking for hotels. And that's commercial. We only have a little bit of only so many acres, let's say 10 acres. We only have X amount of acres left on the bay. And once they take that away from us, we're never getting it back. When they build a hotel, a new amphitheater, underground parking, it's going to really interfere with commercial fishing. So that's why we've been going to these meetings and trying to, you know, secure the commercial fishing areas. And then we're in meetings, too, over at Driscoll's Wharf. That's another place that's a few acres that we need to keep, and so we're trying, the piers there, the docks are all falling apart, the infrastructure is horrible there, and so we're trying to get the port involved. The present leaser, you know, lost his lease, the leasee lost his lease there, and so he doesn't really want to work on it too much, so, you know, we're hoping in the next few years we can get all those projects so we have proper docking in San Diego.
Sounds like you need some timely wins.
Yeah.
Upcoming. Travis, anything you'd like to see in the future? Hopes and dreams for the fleet?
Like I heard one of them say that they mentioned like the disproportionate quotas that are being filled by, you know, our neighboring country, Mexico, and across the seas. There's a small portion that's allotted for, you know, Southern California, and by the time, you know, our quota opens, you know, Mexico's already filling hundreds of tons, and we're only allowed like 50 tons or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, there's something out of balance there. I think it's just weird, you know. I don't.
One quick thing on that. And then in the foreign countries where they're saying we're not catching our fair share, well, we're not allowed to use the same methods that they are to harvest. So they're using a lot of methods that we're heavily restricted on or we're not allowed to use in California. And so then since we're not catching as much as a foreign country, they're taking the fish away. And I always said we should have our fair share, and if so, what if they live? But we should have the opportunity to catch those fish. And so, you know, we're punished because we're not allowed to do those, or we have so many restrictions, so we can't compete with the foreign fleet, but then that foreign fleet is catching those fish and sending it to California. And we have one of our main bluefin buyers in California signed a deal with Mexico where he's not allowed to buy, the biggest bluefin distributor in California is not allowed to buy local bluefin because he's only allowed to buy the Mexican fish that are the pinfish that are caught in Mexico. So, because they can bring that constant supply and they have the thousands of tons to supply compared to our hundreds of tons.
Yeah, and I, you know, you go down to Mexico and you see these brilliant, brand new, extravagant tuna boats, and it's just like, you know, I don't, where's the regulators down there? Are they making sure they're sticking to their quotas, or are they just, sweeping it under the rug and wiping them clean before they get up to our waters? It's just weird. It's just weird that I don't know how much regulation that there is down there truly.
Would a little local support and local demand help any of these issues, do you think? Yeah, nods.
Yeah.
Nodding. Yeah.
Knowledge, sharing knowledge,
Mhm.
making people aware of issues that could become bigger issues and catching it before it does. Who knows? Let's just exchange ideas, and maybe we can fix things, or at least balance things out a little better.
Thank you guys so much. Do you have something final thought? Close this out.
Yeah, I just say that it costs us more to fish. We're highly regulated. If the take home from today would be, ask where your fish is from. If it's from the US, if it's a domestic harvested product, eat it. You should feel good putting your money where your mouth is. That's what it's about. So, again, we're comparing like the snapper to the rockfish here. Yeah, the rockfish might be $7 a pound and the snapper might be $2 a pound, but the fishing methods down in Mexico, a lot of them are underregulated or unregulated, and a lot of it's illegal fishing, and they're importing it across our border, and they're trying to claim it's local seafood a lot of the time. So just ask questions, ask your fishmonger the right questions. But again, you should feel good putting your money where your mouth is and eating US domestic seafood. So
Thank you guys. Folks, before we give them a round of applause and send them off the stage, we're going to have opportunity for Q&A, but I also want you to think back to my prompt at the beginning of the session. What came up for you in the session today? Is there something, a hope or a question or a concern that manifested as you listened to some of these issues? Collect that within yourself. And then once again, I want you to turn to somebody sitting next to you and talk about some of the things that you heard. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Connie Winterstein. I'm actually the co-founder of Local Fish with Tanner here. But my question is, I'm passionate about advocacy, and Tanner and I have talked about this a lot, but how can the community support the fishermen to have their space down at the waterfront? How can, like an individual, who do we write a letter to, or who do we talk to say, hey, this needs to happen?
Yeah, the port's in charge of it, and so they're actually doing a study right now. So if you went on their website, they're actually taking comments on that right now. So you can put in comments right now, and then when everything gets a little further down, then we're going to come out and we'll probably do some fundraisers and some event awareness down at Tuna Harbor Dockside Market, because it's going to affect them. And so we'll have it, we're going to put it out there, and hopefully if you guys see it, you could support us if you believe in what we're trying to say, because there's only X amount of acres left, and so we want to keep them. And there's a lot of acres in the port, there's thousands, so if we could have whatever, it's going to be 20 of it and leave it alone for commercial. Sometimes we run into the trouble of they're saying it's not making enough money for the port. But so that's our biggest fear, is that they want to make money off of every inch of the port. So, and commercial doesn't make them, fishing doesn't make a lot. It brings them money because we're supplying to the restaurants and the trickle down effect. But actually, what they put in their pocket each day, they say is like break even at best, or even loses a little money for them.
yeah, so if you guys see a sign-on letter come through from Local Fish,
Yeah.
sign on. You'd really help us.
Thank you.
Any other questions or hopes or thoughts that came up? Yeah, thank you.
Hello, my name is Desiree. We just kind of touched on just a fact check real quick. Did you say 700,000 for a squid permit?
Squid permits for a per seiner are anywhere from 700,000 to over a million, over $1 million.
Which is wild, and we were just wondering like who that check is made out to, because it, if it's not going to the fisherman, I just think it's
No,
important.
it goes to the fisherman. That the fisherman sells the permit.
Okay.
So when you first bought the permit, and then they made a limited entry program, so there's only 100 of them, let's say. I forget the number right now, but so the fisherman actually. So if I retire, I can sell my permit.
Okay.
But I'm just saying it's hard for someone younger to come up with that
get
kind of
in.
money. So a lot of people did sell their permits, but mostly companies bought them.
Okay.
The processors bought them.
Well, and I learned something interesting actually from Doug today, that there's certain licenses and permits, such as the sea urchin diving permit, that's actually non-transferable. So if he keels over, I hope you never do, Doug, but it just goes into the abyss. So you got to keep that in mind. There's different permits, and some of them are transferable, some of them aren't. Yeah, but
I was also gonna ask, just in the topic of like kinship, and I think we would be remiss to not maybe mention, or I'm curious about if you found any revenue opportunity to sell the fish scraps as soil amendment inputs, and using that to remediate soils, and kind of threading the needle between land and sea stewards, because I think we're all a part of the same mission, and if you are with any organizations that are doing that.
I mean, in my case, all of our products are sold whole or live. So, we don't end up with scrap product, but David might do a little bit of processing.
Yeah, there's a company that comes around and picks it up to use it for those purposes from the fish markets right now. And then we've been involved over the years of utilizing it, scraping the bone, and chefs taking it and trying to repurpose as much of it as we can. We've even used the skin, the skin off the fish to make stuff. And we've done a lot of those projects, but they just didn't end up panning out in the long term. The fertilizer part has worked, or feed, like fish food, stuff like that has worked. But as far as we did a lot of projects trying to save the waste and the head. Yeah. So we've tried a lot of different things, and they've kind of faded out.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I work with Tanner and Connie at Local Fish. And as part of my work, I've been surveying a lot of these next generation fishermen and hearing what they have to say. And I'm wondering about these large corporations that are buying up these limited entry permits, and then some of them I heard, and I don't know if this is true, leasing them, offering them to lease back to these fishermen. And that just sounds like a barrier of entry, as you were saying, to some of these younger guys. It seems disempowering and inaccessible, and I was wondering if there's any conversation around changing the policy to where large corporations wouldn't be allowed to purchase these sort of permits that are really meant for the fishermen.
So yes, that there's the bigger corporations have bought them, but a lot of them have went back to the younger fishermen that were successful and offered them to buy out, because they figured it's so hard. They found out these corporations running a boat, running a crew, and all this. So I would say that probably like 60% of them have been offered back to the younger captains, and they've been working deals, buying the boat and the permit back from the companies. And what happens then is then the company gets a captain that's reliable, that's skin in the game, and stays with them for years. Now, it doesn't always work out. I've seen a lot where the captains come in, and then after a few years, they have a little argument, and then the company ends up with the permit, and the captain ends up on the short end of the stick because he can't hire a good enough attorney. But there's been some success stories, because remember that you can't just take anybody and throw them on a commercial fishing boat and say, go catch fish. And so it's rare to have people that are successful in the industry. So I see young people that have done well, that are doing good up in the San Pedro area with those squid permits. So it's very hard for a big corporation to find a good captain, good crew, and a productive captain, and then take care of the boats. They don't understand about the maintenance in a boat, and all those things I told you about, the 24 hours of thinking about it. A big corporation has a hard time doing that. They have individuals doing it, and they can't put it all together. So I do think in like the squid permits that there's, I would say a lot of the people that have bought the permits are in partnership now with guys running the boats, younger guys taking over the boats.
Hey everybody, I'm Rebecca from Kitchen Table Consultants. I did come in late, so apologies if you already talked about this, but I heard you talking about how, going out on a fishing trip, it's like a $30,000 investment before you even really get started. And I was wondering if you could just maybe like talk about a day in the life or a trip in the life and like what made up that $30,000 and how you think about your return on investment, just to like give us some color on like the risk and what's actually involved in your cost model.
Well, if we're going on a long lane trip right now, let's say my boat just fueled up with 8,600 gallons of diesel fuel at $5 a gallon. So then I was being conservative on the 30,000, and then we have to buy the bait for our hooks. So we have bait, so we spend about 4,000, 4,500 in bait. Then we have to buy the hooks, the mono, snaps, and the maintenance on all of that. So that's another few $1,000s that we spend on the hooks and that kind of gear. Then we have to buy oil filters, and then we have to buy food, which I was normally spending $2,200 to $2,800 a trip on food. Well, that's up over $3,000 to $4,000 now this year from last year. I mean, foods went way up for us. The expensive eggs came back down though, so that was kind of nice. For a while, those things were like, it was like, we had to cut back on those for a while. But there's just a lot of expense that we have. Yeah, and then that's not even including the wages, but the crew we pay by percentage, because that way it's an incentive to catch more, and so they get a higher percentage than if they just get a set rate. So we do a percentage there. Now that is on a long line boat. So if you go out on a jig boat, let's say my little swordfish boat that goes out for 3 or 4 days at a time. So he fuels up and he puts on a few, 300, 400 gallons of fuel. Then he has to buy some bait, which is a few $100s, and then a little bit of gear. So that it's a lot less, on a smaller boat that's going out for a few days. And then if you were to send out a albacore jig boat that's just going to jig and just troll, we'll call it trolling, so you might understand that better. All you do on that is put on the fuel. So that's going to be probably 6,000 gallons of fuel to go out on a trip, 7,000. So 35,000. And then the gear is real cheap on that, so we spend 1,500 in gear for the whole, for a couple months. And then the crew is smaller, so the groceries are probably $2,000 or whatever. So it just depends on what fishery you're doing. But when I was just saying 30 as a rough number. But actually,
sounds like that first example you gave is a lot more than 30.
What's that?
Sounds like that first example you gave is a lot more.
I was just giving you a rough example, because there's different boats. But the fuel cost right now, if our fuel was what it was last year, in the 350 range, you go 350 times 8, or you go 5 times 8, that's a big difference. And then everybody has to remember, when the fuel goes up for me, it goes up for everybody else. So every truck that has to drive my groceries to the store or drive my fish away, that drives, the prices just go way up. So.
Hey, yeah. Christian with Ranchito Milky Way. Just curious about the regulations that you had mentioned regarding how much you guys can catch. Do the regulators, the bodies making those regulations, how often do they meet? How often do they take into account what you're saying? We're getting our fish from other places, and how important is it to them to get that fish? What went into those regulations? Is it the amount of fish and safety? I don't know, the populations. I just want to know. You said science. How much science is influencing that? Yeah, I don't know if you could cover that a little bit.
They use a little bit of everything that you mentioned, and they meet, once or twice. They meet a couple times a year, and they make decisions every year or two. The quota is a 2-year quota on the bluefin, and then other stuff's a 1-year quota. And they use what they call best available science. And sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes it doesn't. And what happens, in my opinion, is I was really involved when the, let's say, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And so we had a bluefin quota of 900 tons in the U.S. at that time, and Mexico had a quota of 3,000 tons or 2,000. And so I was in the negotiating rooms, and then when they went to private session, I wasn't allowed, but I was on my cell phone. I'll never forget, I got a call, so I pull over, and I'm talking with someone from the State Department that's negotiating with Mexico and Japan, and he goes, "Oh, David, you know, I got you 500 tons. And I go, 500 tons? Well, how much did Mexico get? You know, well, they got 3,500 tons. And I go, well, how is that possible? He goes, no, we did good, David, because Mexico said we should have 0. And I said, who's negotiating here, you know? And so, you know, it was the funniest conversation, and that's basically how it's went ever since. When we go in, we have the fishermen saying this, and then by the time it gets to the State Department and the final is done, Japan out negotiates us, and even Mexico does. I mean, it's kind of a, you know, it's embarrassing to me, and it's horrible that that's in. But all they're upsetting, this is a State Department that has a lot of other things they're working on, is they're upsetting 50 fishermen. You know, it's not like, you know, and they're making, you know, thousands of people and something else happy. So that's how I kind of look at it. But it is really sad and, you know, just, you know, hard to take.
Hi, I'm Marianne. I have a question related to shellfish and mariculture, and I'm wondering what level of interest there is here in San Diego for that, and if there's also a crossover with the finfish fishers.
So we don't deal, you're talking about like aquaculture, shellfish and stuff, so we don't deal with that a lot, and what I've always said is that I think that there's a common ground where we could use infrastructure together, like for unloading facilities and stuff like that, where commercial fishing and that can work together. But there's just, you know, we just have to worry about losing fishing grounds to it. Sometimes there's issues where they want to put it on a certain area where we've been fishing historically for years. And like right now, we're in a little issue with the port. Just put out a plan to do some more aquaculture around San Diego Bay. And so they put this big area, and they showed this area here where we have, you know, hundreds or thousands of lobster traps, and then they showed a little area down by the border. And it was really funny because they show an area by the border. I go, why would you put anything there? It's pure sewer down there, you know, so what are you guys thinking? It made no sense to me. Then they had some areas in San Diego Bay that would work. And what I told them is they showed this big area on a screen, but their project's only like this much. And I said, don't show the whole area. Show what your project would be in the area. Because when I looked at that, I'm like, how is that going to work? But all they want is one little area in there. So, you know, there's ways that commercial fishing and the aquaculture people can work together. But, you know, it has to be done right. And there's been just stuff where they've done stuff and not really told the commercial fishermen what was happening till it was too late. So there needs to be real good communication. And it's going to be a tough road for, you know, a lot of fishermen are stubborn, like, nope, we don't want it. It's going to interfere where one of my traps is. Well, if I have 100 traps, I can move one to have, you know, aquaculture there. You know, that's my opinion on it. You know, there's ways to work together on it.
All right, my name is Hernan, and I'm a farmer. I've been a farmer for a little bit over a decade in San Diego, and also a co-founder of Food Chip distribution company. And just kind of taking it back to the question that you asked us to debrief with everybody, I think I just want to share that all these issues that local fishermen have are pretty much the same that we farmers are, you know, dealing with. You know, the price of fuel, markets, regulations in California, and, you know, I can go on forever. Access to resources, access to land, you know. So I think it's important in these times to remember, like, on top of this, fishermen and farmers have to be almost like activists. I mean, the knowledge that you all have to, and thank you for being here too. Thanks for coming and sharing the knowledge. It's like the one thing that we need to remember, that, you know, the fact that a lot of farmers are here and fishermen, it's like, it's insane. We can't really do what we want to. On top of everything, we have to go beyond, learn all these policies, and learn all the how to fight back in order to stay alive on our livelihoods. And it's time to just kind of change that and put also the new generation. We need more farmers, we need more fishermen for sure, but we also more people to be involved in making sense when we're taking decisions, you know, and we put our food and our money where, you know, our livelihoods are. And there's no other way to doing it together with people. And if the fishermen and the farmers can get together, that's a big take. And like you guys were saying, when COVID hit, we had kind of the same situation where we had to, all the farmers markets shut down, and we have to come together. That's when Fuche was born, actually, out of the necessity of the distribution and the produce of the local farmers. But the cool thing is that we also had a lot of people from all over the county knocking at our farm and be like, can we purchase all this? You know, what's going to happen? Oh, I was like, nah, everybody shows up, you know, when things were getting a little bit dark. So I think it's a good, it's a good place to start. Is whatever, you know, everybody here has different backgrounds. Go back, and I think these issues and sharing the knowledge with the fishermen, it can be fight in many different levels. And making kids excited to go fishing again, you know, I think that's one of the biggest. A lot of my friends know, but I'm also fish every week, so that's one of my secrets. So that's why I'm passionate and happy to be here. But yeah, thanks. It's not a question, but it's like we need everybody.
Did you have one comment to? You don't have to, but you can as well. This will be our final one, and then I want us to give a big round of applause to our panelists.
I'm Megan. I just actually, you said there's only 50 people that upsets, but that is a trickle-down effect for all of us that are consumers of fish as well. So is there anything that we can do as general public or here that is an action item or takeaway that we can help in those decision-making processes?
I'd say get involved. Yeah, get involved. I mean, we have a little subscription list that we just set up, and I mean, that trickle-down effect just with the subscription list is we'll get some information out there about ways you can, you know, participate in the sign-on letters, ways you can participate in what's going on with the port in San Diego. A lot of our efforts are really focused on local and what's going on in San Diego, so that impacts each and every one of you guys. So I just say get involved, and also, again, ask your fishmonger where your fish comes from.
So it sounds like, Tanner, they'll be able to get some of those resources on Local Fish Initiative.
Yeah, it's Get
awesome.
Local Fish.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you coming here. Audience, shall we give them a round of applause?